Hey, what is up? How's it going, everyone? Right off the bat, a little, I guess, is housekeeping the right word? But anyway, I definitely noticed that some people commented on the last stream that the volume was a little low. So I played around with it, and I hope it's louder here. Again, if it's too loud, let me know for sure. Again, I can kind of play around with it, but this volume should be better, I guess. I did notice this on some devices, it was kind of quiet. When I watched it on other devices after some people said that the sound quality was fine, but yeah, on some devices the sound wasn't the highest. So I apologize for that, kind of new to this totally. So hey, how's it going, everyone? You know, great to great to speculate some more on this show for sure. And I agree, I can't say that name. Strix. Episode 5 better be. I agree. I think we may be in for some unexpected twists and turns for sure. So, how's it going, Thomas? What's up? Corner of the Esquire. What is up as well? Shell, Justin, how's it going? So anyway, yeah, I kind of was just thinking about the fact that we haven't seen Lalo Salamanca in the last 3 episodes of season 6 of Better Call Saul, and it really just got me sort of thinking of where in the world is this guy. So I agree, Johnny. I agree. Again, though, kind of getting right into it, I do wonder if we're not going to see his character appear for 4 episodes in a row. I definitely think it's possible. I talked about in my last stream how in season 1 of Better Call Saul, Nacho Varga didn't appear for 4 consecutive episodes. And definitely after the first episode, I always harken back to the trailer, which I have right here for season 6 of Better Call Saul, where Mike Ehrmantraut says whatever happens next, it's not going to go down the way you think it is. And it definitely hasn't by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, after seeing Lalo in the first episode of this season, you definitely thought, okay, the pace here is going to, pick up. We know the pacing has to be very, very quick, but we haven't seen Lalo at all in these last 3 episodes, which has been quite surprising in my opinion. And actually, sort of just going back to the trailer, I was actually sort of retroactively going back and looking at the trailer. And I can't play it here, I guess, for copyright purposes for sure, but just sort of I looked at all the various still images here in this trailer, and every single scene in this trailer, the official trailer, is from the first 4 episodes of season 6 of Better Call Saul. I thought that was pretty cool. I definitely didn't notice that. But if you go back and watch the trailer for yourself here, every single scene has been from an episode we've already seen. So I definitely did wonder that. First of all, I wondered whether or not the trailer was for both parts of season 6 of Better Call Saul, and it definitely wasn't. And not only was it only for part 1, but it was also only for the very first episodes. Didn't expect that at all. So really kind of interesting here. And I was going to talk about this a little bit more on Sunday before the episode, but in the trailer for the trailer for the 5th episode of season 6 of Better Call Saul, Lalo is not seen in this trailer at all either. So I do wonder if we're going to go for the four-peat here of 4 consecutive episodes of no Lalo Salamanca. So that would be something for sure. But interestingly, going back to the only sort of iterations we have of Lalo that have been displayed to us in any form prior to the premiere of season 6, it actually came in the form of these 2 teasers here. One of them was called The Word Is Out, and the other was, I believe, was the This Season On, Better Call Saul, that was released after the 2nd episode. And it basically seems to be the same sort of episode or same sort of premise here. Again, I think Lalo's wearing a slightly different outfit here in this scene right here. But we basically have 2 sort of scenes of Lalo here. The first one here, he appears to be at a restaurant. Again, location, who knows? Yeah, Johnny, I agree. I'll get to that for sure about that proof he was talking about with Hector Salamanca at the end of the first episode, Wine and Roses. But anyway, the very first scene we see here, or the only sort of scene we see here in these 2 teasers, is this sort of scene here of Lalo Salamanca, which also was displayed to us in this teaser as well on this season on Better Call Saul. Here we go. This appears to be of the same location here, of Lalo appearing to have dinner with someone. Again, not what I expected at all from this storyline. If you told me Lalo Salamanca would be wearing this nice blazer and shirt and be having this sort of dinner here, looks like he's drinking a martini here, if we can see right here, having dinner with someone, looking at someone here, again, maybe he's at like a lobby bar here, or a hotel, or not a hotel, but like a restaurant bar here, it looks like, again. And I guess kind of getting into that proof that he's looking for, Johnny. If we do remember from the first episode of season 6 of Better Call Saul, when he said he knew there was proof and he knew where to find it, after he killed those two smugglers, he did take their car and drive in the opposite direction of the Mexican border. So again, I don't know what that means. I mean, maybe, I guess if he was going to, I've heard a lot of people speculate the sort of Germany premise, and, obviously he'd have to fly there, or I guess take a boat somehow. I'm not really sure about that one. It's definitely plausible, and I've seen some people say he's going to go after Marguerite Ziegler, Werner's wife, as the proof, with the sort of super lab premise being that Gus Fring is planning on undermining the cartel. And the other person he's going to go after is Kai, because he heard that name when he spoke with Werner at the end of season 4 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Winner. But if you go back and watch that scene before Mike takes the phone out of his hand when he says that Kai will know what to do, he definitely sort of got cut off there. And if you hear what Lalo said after that, he said, I didn't catch that last part when he sort of said Kai will know what to do. So again, we don't even really know if he knows that name of Kai, or if he knows that's even a person. So yeah, the Germany premise is interesting, and he definitely drove in the opposite direction of the U.S. border in that scene. And who knows, maybe he's going to Chile. I've heard that speculation as well. Again, trying to hopelessly speculate here for sure. But yeah, it's like, again, I have no idea here. And of course, the other sort of scene that we've seen of him also is in a different location. Again, it looks like he's wearing something different here. He's definitely not wearing that same white shirt. He's wearing a black shirt here of some kind in this unknown location as well. This sort of very nice home here. Again, not really sure what's going on here. And of course, the true, sort of tense and suspense here is that he's holding a pistol with a silencer here. So definitely trying to seemingly kill someone without making quite a scene here, or trying to incapacitate someone for sure. So really sort of kind of crazy. Sort of, again, I have no idea what's happening here. Absolutely no idea. And it's been quite the surprise, to tell you the truth, that we haven't seen him in the last 3 episodes. But like I said, if you go back to the description of this episode, the subplot of here of the not in respect to the Jimmy and Kim storyline, but the vice tightening on the cat and mouse game between Gus and Lalo. Again, we can definitely say we saw that game in the last episode too, with Gus just being totally on guard in respect to his absolute fear that Lalo Salamanca may come after him. So, again, just because Lalo's in the title here, I guess it definitely doesn't mean that he'll appear in this episode for sure. I mean, he's definitely credited here, but so is Michael Mandow, and that definitely doesn't mean that he'll appear. And of course, Lalo Salamanca wasn't teased in any of the photos that we've seen of this episode as well. So, yeah, just quite the open-ended storyline here, and I don't know what he's going for. That proof that I swear, of course, I was totally wrong here. I thought that proof was Nacho Varga for sure. I thought that is what he was referring to when he was talking to Hector in the first episode of this season. But again, my guess is as good as yours. So I apologize. Relax and sleep. If you're a Maple Leafs fan, I apologize. I will definitely factor that into my future streams for sure. If they have continued success in the playoffs, I apologize for that. So, Samuel Corcado-Ret, again, I apologize for that name. Yeah, it's a good question, man, about the Lalo being there during the Breaking Bad timeline. It's definitely possible. There's a lot of, because of just the open-ended nature of all the dialogue we have, and sort of, I've even discussed about how we could really get in the weeds here about when Gus Fring said to Hector Salamanca, now the Salamanca name dies with you. It is theoretically possible that, I guess, everyone in the cartel continues to think Lalo is dead that entire time for the next 4 years, but he's still alive, and Gus knows that he's still alive, but Hector doesn't know that Gus knows technically. Again, we're really sort of getting back into the, really getting into the proverbial weeds here, but yeah, it's definitely something I've thought about for sure, Samuel, about whether or not Lalo is still out there. And if you definitely go back and watch that final scene, or not the final scene, but that the last conversation that Hector and Lalo have at the end of the first episode, Lalo definitely says to Hector, let them continue to think that I am still alive. it's better that way. But of course, again, I guess Hector has a very bad poker face, or he just took it on his own accord to sort of give it away to Gus Fring that Lalo was still alive. But of course, Gus could just tell immediately by the look on Hector Salamanca's face that Lalo Salamanca was still alive. And that was actually pretty interesting at the end of the last episode, in my opinion, how even we saw Mike Ehrmantraut start to, I would almost say, doubt a little bit Gus Fring's premise that Lalo was still alive, because there is no actual proof of it besides just Gus Fring's suspicions and his inclinations on that look he got from Hector Salamanca, where Mike says it's been 2 weeks, they've been just following, Gus Fring everywhere he's gone. They're having men at all of the usual locations with, hyper levels of protection, and he said there hasn't been a whiff of him, so where is he? And that is exactly the question that I'm wondering as well. Where in the world is Lalo Salamanca? Where did he go here in these scenes that have been teased to us? How did he get these nice clothes? What's the story here? And again, I really felt like in the previous seasons, I always go back to that Crazy 8 storyline, how we could kind of see what was going to happen just based on the backstory of Breaking Bad, how we could really kind of put it together. And that storyline with Hank Schrader and Steve Gomez and Crazy 8 really wasn't a surprise at all. This right here, with it being completely open-ended, based on the plot of Breaking Bad, outside of Saul Goodman's, very up-to-interpretation dialogue in Season 2 of Breaking Bad and the episode entitled Better Call Saul, other than that, any storyline the creators choose to craft here is just, completely open to all of these potential twists and turns that I absolutely cannot wait to see for sure. Again, that's an interesting point as well, Relax and Sleep. It kind of reminds me of that scene in The Princess Bride with the poison wine, where he's sort of, it's the sort of reverse psychology back and forth, like you want me to think that I want you to think that you want me to think, something to that effect. So again, we could really go down that rabbit hole, and I really just feel like it'd be pretty tough there. But I see what you're saying for sure. That's definitely something that, is definitely possible. So that's an interesting point. Some cabbage. The sort of, I've heard that as well, the Lalo and Gene interaction being potentially possible because it's not contradicted at all based on the canon of Breaking Bad. I've definitely heard some people speculate that as well. That would be very interesting here for sure. You'd love to see that. I mean, I definitely think I heard an interview with Bob Odenkirk discussing his character Saul Goodman, and he just talks about that absolute fear that Saul always has of Lalo Salamanca, which was absolutely exemplified in that scene in Season 2 of Breaking Bad. So potentially seeing that interaction for sure would be pretty amazing, in whatever story they decide to craft here. Beef testosterone, that's actually sort of an interesting point you raised there about the two dealers. I was thinking about getting to that later, but I may address that now, actually, in respect to sort of Gus Fring's operation in his drug empire. So let me just take a look at the comments here, but I may address that. But anyway, yeah, sort of getting into that beef testosterone. That's actually, again, that name kind of gets me, but anyway, sort of getting into that, I remember, shout out to, I think the commenter was David Griffin 14 in my last live stream, who sort of mentioned this, like, where does Gus Fring get all of his men from? And I definitely was sort of laughing at the troll response to that, but I did sort of think about that question, and it sort of made me harken back to, you're talking about those rival dealers playing an intricate role maybe in the storyline the rest of the way these last 9 episodes. Oh, I appreciate it, Thebes, as I said, Thisbe. I tried to work on the audio. I hope it's not if it's too loud, let me know, but I definitely tried to turn it up. I definitely noticed on some devices it was really low, so I appreciate the feedback. But anyway, going to what Beef Testosterone said, and what the comment in the last video, David Griffin 14 said about, like, where does Gus Fring get all of his men? Because in the last episode, we heard Mike say that the operation was stretched very thin, and even we heard Gus Fring say that the man who they put in Los Pollos Hermanos is sort of a, undercover operative who was posing as a fry cook was not up to Los Pollos standards. So while he may have been an efficient bodyguard, he also needed to have, at least adequate, or maybe the Los Pollos standard of ability in terms of being a short order cook. But anyway, I was actually thinking back to this image here that was displayed to us in season 5 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled 51 originally. This was the board we saw at the DEA office when Hank and Steve Gomez were going over the sort of, what they had on Gus Fring's operation after his death at the end of season 4, right before Hank got his promotion in that episode. And I was actually just thinking about this, about, Beef Testosterone raised the factor of the two rival dealer characters who were Gus Fring's trusted employees. And I was thinking back to, like, where do all these sort of people come from? Again, it's sort of almost like, I would say almost literary magic trick, if you will. I have thought about that, about like, where does Mike get all his crew from? How does he vet them? He definitely does do all these things. He's even outwardly displayed it to us. But of course, showing this on screen would probably be, would have the plot get way too bogged down in sort of very sort of small sort of nitty-gritty details. But anyway, just kind of getting back into this crew, I was thinking back to sort of the people that we have seen here. And of course, we've seen Gus Fring, the sort of one in charge of everything. And we've also seen Peter Schuler here, who's in head of, I believe, the restaurant division at Madrigal, was a part of this operation as well that we've seen in the course of Better Call Saul so far. We've, of course, seen Tyrus. He was sketched here as the the unsub bystander, the unidentified bystander who saw Gail Bedecker murdered in his apartment. Of course, he vanished before they could get, or I guess went back to the lab before they could get a statement from him. And this was the sort of eyewitness sketch of him that we saw here. Of course, he's presumed dead, I suppose, and they never get him. We've seen Gail Bedecker as well. We've seen the sort of Hector and Don Eladio connection as well to Gus Fring. And we've seen Tyrus and Mike as well. But we actually haven't seen any of Gus Fring's crew here, down here in the bottom left corner, including Ron, the warehouse foreman who was in charge of the magical warehouse, as well as Dennis, who was the manager of the laundry who was in on the scam. We haven't seen Dwayne Chow as well, who was the head of Golden Moth Chemical. Again, we don't really know the specific role that Golden Moth Chemical had in this operation. You would imagine they were supplying some of the chemicals to Gus Fring in respect to, making his methamphetamine. Again, we also don't know how long these relationships have, it took Gus to cultivate these relationships as well. I was thinking back to the cold opening scene of the last episode with the husband and wife team, which was displayed to us in that episode, episode 4, if I'm not mistaken, Hit and Run. If we remember back to the two people riding the bicycles who owned those homes, who owned that home where all of Gus Fring's men were stationed as sort of his command central, they were identified as a husband and wife team. So again, there's a really interesting backstory here about, I guess Gus found this, couple who he trusted enough to sort of build this underground tunnel to attach to their house and sort of have this command central there. Again, this is an entire backstory here that I don't think ever going to have enough time to be displayed to us in 9 episodes with, the rest of the story that needs to be told. But just sort of getting to the point here is, like, you do wonder, like, how, these characters may factor into the storyline of Better Call Saul with there only being 9 episodes left. And, Beef Testosterone raising the question about the rival dealers. Again, I don't know. I don't know whether or not they're going to factor into the storyline. I have discussed that, just the fact that I've noticed that so much of the story has been left sort of very open-ended to interpretation, not sort of outwardly displayed. I think there is going to be a lot, in this show that is sort of, will be left open-ended for the audience to continue to speculate on after the show ends in 9 episodes. So, and again, I didn't address Chris as well. He's the one who attempted to kill Mike, I believe, in the episode entitled Madrigal. That's a whole nother story there. We saw him over the course of Breaking Bad in season 4 as well. I made a video about that. And of course, we have the 7 men here, in addition to Ron and Dennis, who were murdered in the prison killings by Walter White as the witnesses to Gus Fring's operation before Gus Fring was killed. So again, these people were identified by name, but we never saw them or heard them interact, other than their scenes of them being killed in the prison montage killing scene. So yeah, that is a good point. I do wonder, which one of these characters will be displayed to us. So, over the course of, I don't know why this keeps popping up, over the course of this season, it's definitely something I've thought about for sure. Lalo lured into the super lab and killed. Yeah, I have heard that one as well, Thomas. People keep mentioning Lalo in the South Wall. Again, I don't know if that's a little bit of almost turning into a meme or if that's actually going to be serious. So that's a good point. Coconut Head as well. What proof does Gus have that Lalo's 100% alive? Again, there is no proof. It's just this sort of gut feeling. And we even saw at the end of that, of the previous episode, how I almost saw Mike Ehrmantraut somewhat start to be dubious of the claim that he was even alive at all, just because, where is he? They've been, keeping an eye on all of Gus Fring's, frequented locations, and there hasn't even been a whiff of him. But as we can see by these teasers for likely the first half of season 6 of Better Call Saul, he's definitely somewhere, and he definitely has some sort of overt plan here. So, again, what Mike saw, Mike Sith, the South Wall. What did I say? Did I did I not say the South Wall? Did I say something else? Oh yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea, Coconut Head. I haven't been doing that. That's actually good. That's a good call there. Gotta work on the notifications there. So. And yeah, kind of getting ahead here a little bit. Again, there's been a confirmed title for the sixth episode. Sort of even skipping ahead from the fifth episode, but we do see here it's a Kim and Jimmy enlist a knowledgeable contact, and the sub sort of plot here is Howard scrutinizes Jimmy's business practices. So again, I don't want to get too far ahead of here for sure. But I do want, again, fingers crossed for this knowledgeable contact being Patrick Kuby. Again, maybe it's pie in the sky here. I'm not too sure, but I do hope. That would be amazing if we saw him. I do wonder who this knowledgeable contact is. We already saw Wendy reprised. There wasn't a behind-the-scenes leak of Bill Burr, so we don't have some behind-the-scenes fan footage to sort of draw on. And you do wonder the sort of Howard scrutinizing Jimmy's business practices as well, sort of probably figuring out his sort of his how do I put this? Just sort of his realization of maybe him setting up that business practice, and maybe him sort of, just being aware of what Jimmy did in respect to Lalo Salamanca at the end of season 5 as well, where everyone's sort of giving him the cold shoulder out there, Bernalillo County Courthouse. So, Connor the Esquire, that's actually a very interesting point. Again, I keep harkening back to the trailer for season 6 where, it not going down the way we think it is. I did not sort of, even envision the fact that Lalo Salamanca could still be alive in the Gene timeline, but it's definitely possible based on the canon of Breaking Bad. So, and again, yeah, there's definitely a fear there. And again, sort of jumping a little bit of ahead here, but I believe we go to the trailer for the sixth episode, the fifth episode. Excuse me. I don't know if they have this scene here. They actually may not have it, but yeah, for some reason it's not showing up here, but on the television broadcast I can talk about it. We definitely saw Kim put the chair underneath the door handle because she definitely has absolute fear in respect to Lalo Salamanca still being alive. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe also they have this scene here. Yeah, too. Yeah, this is actually from the trailer. We have this look back that happened the very last scene of the last episode. Just the Kim looking over her shoulder, just in absolute fear of where Lalo Salamanca may be. I mean, even though Mike told her that he has bigger fish to fry, and it's maybe a 1 in 1,000 chance that he would go after Saul Goodman first of all people. So, and again, we get to see the sort of blissful ignorance, continue here for Saul Goodman, unlike Kim Wexler. So, will Ernie come back? That's actually interesting that you mentioned, Justin, because I was sort of looking at the cast for the next episode, and I did see, if I'm not mistaken here, I think I might have to, yeah, so for the top cast here, they do have, like, the sort of, guest stars. It looks like we will have, the sort of Viola character. I remember seeing a sort of, I believe in the television, on the next episode of Better Call Saul, we saw a conversation between her and Kim. We also saw Clifford May talking with Howard Hamlin, but we will get to see Lyle apparently. That was one character that I don't believe was teased in any form prior to the next episode. We, of course, saw Francesca as well, and that's going to be an absolutely sort of great scene to see when we see her come back into the fold, when we see Saul Goodman's office open for the first time in the plot of Better Call Saul in the next episode. So, oh my goodness, Thomas, how could I forget? Tortuga, of course. Almost forgot about that as well. Definitely going back, putting my tinfoil hat back on in respect to the next episode being titled Black and Blue. That was, of course, the very first episode that Tortuga appeared in the plot of Better Call Saul for sure. So, again, who knows? I mean, I wouldn't imagine like any huge guest stars, like any huge surprises would be displayed in the sort of top cast that would totally give it away. I mean, maybe it almost comes across as too obvious, so it won't happen. I know a lot of people would love to see it for sure. Justin Cruz as well. Can Tortuga appear? So I would love to see it for sure. Archive media, that's definitely a definite possibility. Again, with an axe, with the title of Axe and Grind in 2 episodes, sort of getting ahead here. But when I think of axe, I definitely think of the Salamanca twins for sure. So and again, not to try to get too far ahead here, but again, I don't know if this is officially confirmed because I haven't seen it on like IMDb, and I have heard some people sort of debate whether or not this is the actual title. But I did see on the on Wikipedia at least, and it says there's a citation here. But apparently, the very last episode of Part 1 is entitled Plan and Execution. Again, I don't know if this is absolutely confirmed, but I have heard that this is going to be the title for the final episode here. So talk about quite a word with a lot of different meanings here with execution, and with us already having one big death in season 6 of Better Call Saul in the 3rd episode. You do wonder if there's a sort of a double meaning here, or maybe it's sort of a red herring and it's not the type of execution we're all thinking about. So again, really sort of quite the title here. Definitely these last three extremely intriguing with the Breaking Bad reference, with the sort of violent sort of undertones of these titles here. Really has me quite intrigued for these final 3 episodes to conclude Part 1 for sure. Do you think Lalo is actually a classier guy and dresses casual for the cartel? Again, I don't know about that, but again, the formal wear here, the clothing, that is definitely intriguing. It definitely seems as though he's trying to blend in almost Connor the Esquire. It almost has a sort of blending in sort of feel here. Again, maybe he's in Germany, maybe he's in Europe in these pictures. I don't know. But again, he definitely can't dress in the sort of laborer clothing that we saw him wear in the 1st episode. And he definitely can't wear the sort of, I don't even know how you describe it, that sort of flashy, casual attire that he wears when he's working in the cartel. But, excuse me, again, that's a great question in respect to the clothing here. Again, so many mysteries. Again, I wish I knew more here, but again, it is nice to have some mysteries, to tell you the truth. I mean, say what you will about kind of just sort of really kind of getting into the weeds prior to these episodes in respect to sort of really looking at all the different clues and everything. But again, the Wendy sort of appearance wasn't a surprise at all because we sort of knew that was going to happen, as well as the sort of the sort of surveillance system that we saw teased in the trailer for season 6 of Better Call Saul. That wasn't really a surprise either. But again, this plot with Lalo here, again, really sort of definitely has sort of big surprise written all over it. Kind of like Nacho Vargas' death, which I didn't see coming at all. So yeah, again, Thomas. I mean, with the Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul. I mean, they will be in one episode, and that's actually an interesting point. I mean, is that confirming they'll only be in one episode? Because I definitely thought about that. I mean, they said they're going to appear, but there is no rule, I suppose, about how many episodes they'll appear. And I imagine it's not going to be, more than two. I mean, I guess it is technically possible. I mean, maybe we'll just get one scene of them and that's it. But again, I'm not really sure. So omni-violent. Yeah, I definitely talked about that. I mean, I think it's definitely possible we don't see him in the next episode. And it is kind of interesting, the sort of almost literary device where even though he hasn't appeared in the last 3 episodes, his presence has absolutely been there. And the sort of fear that he's instilled in all of the characters that we have seen, I mean, it is kind of quite starking and interesting to see on screen how he's not, Lalo Salamanca is not on screen, but his presence is still really felt by all of the characters. So really interesting to see, in my opinion. Damn, I think it may be raining. It's picking up on the mic. Anyway. Yeah, all right then. Again, I don't know. Again, I have thought about that. And I talked about that in a previous video about you'd think that all the sort of appearances would come at very sort of symbolic times, like at the final episode or the first episode or something to that effect. But again, with the sort of I've kind of gone all in on my sort of I guess my sort of conspiracy theory that Walter White and Jesse Pinkman are going to appear in the next episode. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and I may have to totally eat crow here, and that title may be a complete red herring, but really kind of interesting to see. It's true. If we don't see him, that would mean he wouldn't appear in what, 5 straight episodes, and then would appear in only the first and last. That would be quite something. Yeah, all right then. That would be quite something. What if Lalo kills Howard? Again, I've seen that as well. Again, I don't know if those two worlds will overlap. I really see sort of Howard sort of being sort of kind of completely sort of innocent to this whole cartel world. Again, maybe he somehow gets caught up in it unintentionally or something to that effect, but I really sort of see him sort of completely separated from that world for sure. And it's actually kind of interesting. I guess if we do go back to that scene we saw of Howard Hamlin in his therapy session, again, it wasn't outwardly displayed to us, but I guess he does have a family that we've never seen. I mean, we did see his house one time when Jimmy McGill threw the bowling balls in his car in season 5 of Better Call Saul, I believe, in the episode entitled Namaste. And he did talk about someone who I think was definitely implied to be his wife, I suppose. But again, nothing has been confirmed there. So it would be, nice to see sort of more information revealed to us about Howard Hamlin's character that has already been for sure. Yeah, in respect to the sort of Howard death premise as well, I've talked about that again. My money's on he's not going to die. I feel like a lot of people. I feel like it's sort of just kind of the opposite of what we think. Again, I did see that one sort of Instagram live video he did where he sort of jokingly said that Jimmy McGill is going to be the death of me with that sort of very obvious face he made. And I don't know, for some reason I think that Howard survives all of this. I almost feel like I initially thought that there's no way that he could survive, but part of me just thinks that he will. And it is kind of interesting to think about the fact that if he does survive to see the end of Better Call Saul, that throughout the entire time that Breaking Bad is going on, that Hamlin McGill is still out there and is a functioning law firm that's sort of, never seen, of course, in the plot of Breaking Bad, but of course is out there in Albuquerque and was a big part of Jimmy McGill's life over the course of Better Call Saul. So, could be wrong for sure, but can't wait to see what happens with Howard Hamlin when all is said and done. All right then. Yeah, I talked about at All Right then. I know it's a funny name there, but I did go back to the trailer and I actually rewatched it. And yes, every single scene from that trailer was not only from the first part, but was actually from the first 4 episodes. If you go back and watch that trailer for season 6, you'll recognize every single scene that was displayed there in one of the first 4 episodes of season 6 of Better Call Saul. I thought that was actually really kind of cool. So yeah, they're all from the first 4 episodes. Again, we have seen some scenes teased of episodes of that we haven't seen yet, particularly in respect to the scenes of Lalo Salamanca, who has been nowhere to be found. Also, this scene here, we saw a couple iterations here of this right here. I wasn't sure what's going on here. I believe maybe this was, I think it was in another teaser actually, but yeah, there was a man sort of pouring something into a vat in this teaser here. In this scene here, we haven't seen this scene displayed to us yet. Again, there's a better shot here. I will be able to find it. But I don't believe it's in these 2 teasers, if I'm not mistaken, of someone pouring a vat into something. But this scene also pretty damn intriguing to me as well. I mean, just seeing Gus Fring walk out of Los Pollos Hermanos with this look on his face again, I knew what he was looking at. We haven't seen this one as well in this official teaser on this season on Better Call Saul, but something's happening here for sure. And again, we don't know, is this Gus Fring's paranoia? Is he actually looking at something here? I mean, is he looking at, Lalo? I mean, I doubt it is possible, but again, this look of just absolute fear here, this sort of, just intense tunnel vision stare that Gus Fring has on his face outside of Los Pollos. I can only imagine what's going on here. Yeah, Archive Media 1. Again, it didn't look like Gale in those photos or those scenes that I saw in those teasers, but, I would love to see Gale Bedecker again for sure. And just going back to these scenes here, I mean, I have sort of talked myself into the premise that Lalo's in Germany. It sort of makes sense to me in respect to the proof of the undermining of the cartel, because he sort of already knows about some sort of south wall and some construction project. And I believe he even said to Juan Bolsa in that episode when they had that meeting at the distribution center, like, do you trust Fring? And, Juan Bolsa saying he'll never be one of us, but as long as he earns, that's all Eladio cares about. So maybe Lalo did this conversation that he had with Werner sort of resonated with him, and, maybe he is in Germany here. Again, he did drive in the opposite direction of the border, so, maybe he's in Chile. Again, I guess it's possible, but again, that's even more pointless than speculating in, because we know about Gus Fring's past in Chile, but it's so mysterious, and it's so just... There's just pieces here. I mean, Lalo did say in that dialogue, what about Chile? Was that just business? Again, maybe he's in Chile. Again, who knows? But also, I think with him being how would he even get on a plane to Germany? I mean, that talk about, being an evil genius of someone who's out on bail, who now, of course, the system knows that, he's not who he said he was. I guess in the first episode, I guess they hadn't put two and two together yet, so I guess he somehow could have flown to Germany or taken a boat there, but he's in France. Ryan Buckley, JK. Again, yeah, I don't know how they square that circle. I mean, if he's able to do that, I guess it sort of does in compromise the sort of evil genius thing. And I will wonder in respect to where he is, if he is in international borders, it does kind of remind me back to season 5 of Breaking Bad, how Walt was able to get from New Hampshire all the way back to Albuquerque despite all of his sort of headwinds and obstacles. And, it was just kind of implied that, Walter White was just luckier and smarter than you, and he was able to do these things. And I do wonder if, Lalo will just be sort of displayed to us to be this sort of evil genius where he's able to do all these things despite the enormous odds, even though they're not outwardly displayed to us on screen in these episodes to come. So... Henry, I did see that clip. I may make a video about it tomorrow. Yeah, I think I see what you're saying there, Thomas Cunningham. Yeah, again, like, I know it said, like, in the previous episode, like, despite the assurances from the cartel, again, we know that the cartel is going to, in the end, trust Gus Fring. That's an interesting point. So whatever proof that Lalo is trying to find on Gus to undermine his position, we do know it seemingly is not going to work, because I really feel if the cartel knew that Gus Fring tried to kill Lalo, they would have had to kill him, seemingly so. But we know from season 3 of Breaking Bad, I believe in the episode IFT, if I'm not mistaken, that first meeting that Bolsa and Hector and the cousins have with Gus, I mean, they say that the North is Gus Fring's territory, giving him all of this power, and him even having the ability to bless the hit on Walter White because it was happening on the north side of the border. So again, it seems that we seemingly know that whatever proof that Lalo is trying to get on Hector, he's trying to get on Gus, he's not going to be able to use to undermine his position in that, to take him out of the cartel, if that makes sense. It's not going to work, we know, based on the backstory of Breaking Bad, but still, I still can't wait to see that, whatever he has in store for us, whatever he's planning, whatever the creators have in store for us, despite the fact that his plan is seemingly not going to work. So relax and sleep. I think he may go after Nacho's father in a little bit, but again, this sort of seems like too nice of sort of dwellings here for this to be Nacho's father's house. I believe we did see his house, and he lived in much more modest sort of accommodations than this. I think it's definitely possible that he might go after him down the road, but again, I don't think whatever we've seen here of Lalo Salamanca at this restaurant and doing whatever he's doing in that house with the silencer on his gun, that I do not believe is has anything to do with Nacho's father, if I'm not mistaken. That's a good point as well, Coconut Head. How I guess Lalo doesn't know that Nacho is dead unless someone is communicating to him, for sure. That's a good point. And that's actually kind of interesting too, how I guess Nacho went to his grave actually believing that Lalo was dead. I imagine, unless I guess Gus Fring could have told him. Yeah, I guess we don't know that for sure. I don't believe that anyone told not I don't believe we saw a scene of anyone tell Nacho that Lalo was actually still alive, because Gus Fring actually knew. But of course, as part of that plan, he would have to say that he was dead in order for the story to seem real. So that's actually an interesting point. I'm not actually sure if Nacho knew that Lalo was dead when he took his own life. I wish, Chief Big Hat, I wish it was Lydia's house, but just based on the nature of the fact that the actor did not appear in this season because of travel restrictions, I don't think it is her house, unfortunately. So I wish it was, though. But it would seem kind of odd if that was her house and you didn't have the actor to play the character. So yeah, Henry Tugo is still a part of the cartel when he first meets Walt, for sure. That's actually kind of an interesting dynamic too. I definitely did wonder about that. Ryan Buckley, she's not home. Oh my goodness, that would be so funny. Oh, she's just not home. Yeah, that's funny. But Henry, going back to your point about Tuco and the cartel, I did sort of wonder that, because after initially watching Better Call Saul, where it was kind of, because the story had not been completely crafted when Breaking Bad was originally written, we kind of did see Jesse Pinkman's dialogue say that when Walter White asked him who took Crazy Eight's place, he said Tuco. And that sort of, in hindsight, that definitely didn't make sense based on the backstory of Hector and the cartel that was displayed to us, because there's no way that Crazy Eight would ever be ahead of Tuco. And also, we knew from the plot of Breaking Bad that he had been out of jail for a year. But again, I think we can kind of just chalk this up to Jesse Pinkman's lack of actual knowledge in respect to the cartel. And, maybe he just didn't know about Tuco. And, of course, Tuco didn't actually take Crazy Eight's place when he died. In hindsight, it sort of appeared that way at the time, but that's because the story wasn't completely written. But yeah, that is kind of an interesting dynamic. You ask about Tuco being involved with the cartel when Walter White was alive, and he absolutely was. And it is kind of interesting to know that, again, at the time we didn't know it. All throughout the course of Breaking Bad, we never knew that Crazy Eight and Tuco knew each other. But they definitely did. They had scenes and interactions together. The very first scene we saw of Crazy Eight, actually in the plot of Better Call Saul, was a scene with Tuco Salamanca. I believe in the episode entitled Gloves Off, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that is an actually interesting point there. And again, I don't know how much more of the Crazy Eight story we'll get. I think a lot of that's kind of a storyline that may be open to interpretation when all is said and done. But, really kind of interested to see for sure. Justin Cruz, again, that's technically possible. I mean, we already saw that. I mean, I don't know why that would factor into the storyline. That is a good point, Thomas Cunningham. I do remember that when Werner first came to Albuquerque, he was blindfolded. But you would imagine that they would, when they went out for their R&R, you would imagine that they knew where they were. I mean, you would think after being there for as long as they were for several months, I feel like almost a year, maybe just under a year, you think they would have figured out they were in Albuquerque. But I guess it wasn't outwardly revealed to us. And of course, when they were initially sort of looking for contractors to build the super lab, they of course didn't want them to know where they were. Gus Fring being incredibly cautious, for sure. So that is an interesting point, though, in respect to the sort of potential Kai storyline of Lalo Salamanca maybe being in Germany theoretically. I agree, Lewis. Very careful man, Gus Fring. Extremely cautious. Almost maybe too cautious, but of course didn't display the proper level of caution when finally seeing Hector Salamanca at the end of season 4 of Breaking Bad. How's it going as well? Awesome Aaron 2000. That's a really good question, Spliff Craniums. That's a great question there. You would think so. Again, I'm not sure. It definitely doesn't have to happen. I mean, Saul Goodman's dialogue in the desert makes sense, I guess, with or with him not, you know, seeing Lalo again in the plot of Better Call Saul in the remaining 9 episodes. I really feel like just his maybe acknowledgement of the fact that he's still alive would instill the fear in him where it would make that dialogue make sense. So I would definitely love to see Lalo interact with them, but it's definitely not going to be as sort of, I don't want to say jovial, but it was definitely sort of, what's the word of a term I'm looking for here? It definitely was more casual and informal and not as sort of tense, but any meeting between these two characters would be just unbelievably tense. But again, at the same time, you do wonder how that would work. That's actually a really good point you bring up Spliff Craniums, because with Mike's men watching over Saul and Kim, you do wonder how it would even be possible for Lalo to interact with Saul and Kim outside of him literally trying to, I guess, attempt to quickly assassinate them or something to that effect. So that is a good point. It is kind of hard to square that circle with the sort of people watching them currently, how they would be able to interact if they really sort of have this 24-hour protection around them all the time, or maybe not 24-hour protection around them, but maybe so. I mean, Mike did talk about how his guys were working 18-hour days, so I guess it is possible. He better not touch Kim. That's funny. That's a great point, Raylon Givens. I definitely brought that up as well. Despite the fact that he's not there, his presence is definitely felt. He is definitely, as the kids say, living rent free in a lot of the characters' heads right now. So Mendoza's Coyote, I've talked about that as well. Would absolutely love to see that. It would be something. I mean, I feel like it needs to happen, but it would be something if through two entire series completely of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, we never see any of Hector's nephews interact other than the cousins themselves. That would be something. Maybe they're sort of going to keep that continuity there, or maybe they will interact. Who knows? But I would love to see it. Koala Cole, no, that was definitely Gus's guys. That was definitely Gus's guys based on what was revealed to us in the plot of Better Call Saul in the last episode. That's definitely not Lalo. That's definitely Gus's men who are following Jimmy and Kim after they left the Kettleman's office. I know Thomas Cunningham. I agree. It's so hard to see those two characters, or three characters, excuse me, interact because their personalities are just so different. And I mean, they definitely have talked to one another based on the dialogue that's been displayed to us over the course of Better Call Saul. But yeah, it is kind of hard to imagine, them interacting just based on just how seemingly different they are on the surface. That's a really interesting point there, Christopher Booth, about how would Saul be able to keep practicing if Kim died? Again, it is also interesting to think about just just all the sort of baggage that Saul Goodman is going to have, before he practices the law under the name Saul Goodman at his new office of the law offices of Saul Goodman and Associates. And yeah, again, that's something else I really feel like I haven't really talked about lately. But again, that change. I mean, I still find myself just thinking about just how different of a character Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad is from the Saul Goodman we see right now. And I'm really starting to buy into that sort of premise that Saul Goodman is just sort of a persona that Jimmy McGill puts on. I'm kind of sort of thinking that's where the creators are going to go at the end of the day. And actually, if we go back to the first episode of this season when he's at the Bernalillo County Courthouse before he's going to talk to the detective and the assistant district attorney about the sort of Lalo Jorge de Guzman thing, before he rounds that corner, he's sort of, still sort of experiencing that PTSD a little bit. And before he rounds that corner, he sort of goes back around the corner and sort of collects himself and grips his briefcase really hard. And after he rounds the corner, he then is much more confident and sort of puts on that Saul Goodman persona for those two characters. So I'm really starting to think that it's sort of a character that he's playing up a little bit. But and it is kind of interesting to sort of, but at the same time, he's really going to go down the criminal rabbit hole where, getting Lalo out and having plausible deniability is one thing, but doing the things that he's going to do over the course of Breaking Bad with facilitating Walter White and where he's basically, telling him that you really should kill this person as a loose end, in respect to people like Hank Schrader and Jesse Pinkman, and of course having to do what he did with Brock again and just basically even almost I guess selling, sort of facilitating in the distribution of methamphetamine. Maybe he sort of thinks of that as a victimless crime. Again, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I mean, just go back to the episode of Peekaboo where you see the way that, Walter White's I guess meth sort of impacted people and even young children and things of that nature, where that young child of Spooge and his lady was living in absolute squalor because of the fact that they used Walter White's product. And again, I don't want to go too off into existential philosophical debate about, drug use, but again, it's like the things that Saul is going to do in Breaking Bad, even compared to what he's done so far, it's quite the stark contrast. And it's a long way to go in 9 episodes. But at the same time, I have heard people say, and maybe even, I think I heard someone quote Giancarlo Esposito that the timelines aren't going to meet up completely. So again, I really sort of, I almost don't even know what the sort of premise here is of this storyline. It's obviously to show us the backstory of Saul Goodman, but how far down the road, how far, how far into his sort of persona are we going to see, and sort of what's the meaning behind that? What happens in that sort of gap of the end of Better Call Saul and the start of Breaking Bad? So a lot of questions here, very little answers. I agree beef testosterone, but it's hard to imagine what that conversation would even entail. That's another good question, Smack Kerr. What is up, Jason, as well? But yeah, I have wondered that. I do kind of think that sort of storyline. I mean, run its course is kind of, a little bit of a loaded term there, but I definitely think that story has reached the sort of precipice of where it was in the plot of Breaking Bad, and it definitely sort of set up the backstory of why Mike does what he does and the sort of complex relationship he has with his family and his granddaughter and his daughter-in-law. So again, I don't know if we need to see too much more of that. And to tell you the truth, I mean, I don't think we need to see that much more of, Kaylee Ehrmantraut being the same age and having sort of the Benjamin Button disease or whatever in this storyline. But it is, I kind of think that story has run its course. And I think we're really going to see Mike more become the sort of hardened killer he was in the plot of Breaking Bad. I mean, if we go back to that scene, I believe it was in the episode entitled Full Measures, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe it was Half Measures again. I'm not, it might have been Half Measures. It was Half Measures or Full Measures. But when he goes to Golden Moth Chemical to kill all those cartel henchmen with absolute impunity, again, we've kind of already seen him do that when he killed the gang members who tried to steal the $7 million from Saul Goodman. So we've definitely seen him sort of embrace that role more, but it's definitely it seems like we need to see more of the backstory of the relationship between Mike and Gus more than Mike and his family. Yeah, so I would have to say that Smack Kerr in respect to the storyline of his family running the course. So Ryan Buckley, did he say that? Again, I definitely do think, I mean, I really feel like they don't want any like lazy story writing for sure, Ryan, irrespective of what happens. Because, I mean, I feel kind of bad saying this, but I definitely made a point of this about how the Crazy Eight storyline that ensued over the course of season 5 of Breaking Bad, in hindsight, it does come across as a little bit, I mean, lazy is such a bad word, but it comes across as just almost, is derivative the right word? I don't know. It was just so predictable because it was literally just lifted from the backstory of Breaking Bad. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't it true that Vince Gilligan wasn't a part of the creative team for the last couple of seasons, but he sort of re-entered the fold of the creative team for this season of season 6, if I'm not mistaken? So definitely a lot of twists and turns here, and I kind of like the sort of lack of predictability. So it would definitely, I think it would be kind of a little bit of a letdown if these sort of obvious endings happen just based on sort of slight descriptions that occurred in the plot of Breaking Bad. So yeah, I'm definitely all for these twists and turns for sure. Chief Big Hat brought up Alaska, and when you say Alaska, that makes me think of Jesse Pinkman, of course. And of course, I definitely did hear someone like the reference to it's slipping my mind here. The what was Otaka Kobesa? Yeah, I guess it is theoretically possible that we just see Jesse Pinkman or just Walter White in the next episode. Maybe we don't see both. They definitely did not say that they would both appear in the same episode. They just said that they were coming back. So Danny, what is the main theory where Lalo is? Again, I don't know, but again, if I was a betting man, I'd probably go with Germany, but I could be completely wrong. I did discuss like how does he get there? Does he fly? Does he take a boat? He did drive in the opposite direction of the Mexican border. Did he go to Chile? But Germany makes the most sense to me, but again, I could be completely wrong. But that's what, if I had to take a guess, that is what I would go for when I've kind of just thought back to this storyline and everything that's been teased to us so far. At J, zero chance Kim dies. I tend to agree. I just don't see it happening. I don't know why. But then again, I don't know if I definitely saw Nacho's death as a possibility, not so early, but I definitely, I just don't see it with Kim. I think she survives. And again, going back, why Germany? Again, I kind of bought in Benedict Jones. I kind of bought into the sort of the undermining of trying to find proof of Gus Fring trying to undermine the cartel, because the super lab is the main premise of the super lab is sort of for, I guess, Gus Fring to kill the entire cartel and then have a means of production on his side of the border, which he can just make just copious amounts of methamphetamine for. So I guess if he was creating this, you know, Super Lab without the consent of the cartel, and the whole premise of it was to undermine the cartel, the sort of secretiveness and the clandestineness of it. Maybe that's the proof, quote unquote, that Lalo is looking for. Again, that makes the most sense to me. Again, maybe I'm completely wrong, but that's what I'm rolling with. Again, I could be completely wrong, but if I had to take an educated guess, which isn't saying much, but that just kind of makes sense to me. I mean, that's what I've definitely heard. I've heard Chile as well, and that's definitely possible, but I don't even know where you'd begin with the speculation with that just being such an open-ended storyline. So, and just in respect to the sort of Kim death theory, I think I talked about this in a previous video or live stream, but I definitely remember after Lydia's death how Vince Gilligan kind of jokingly said that maybe it was a little bit of sexist of him to have Lydia die by the ricin and not have her being mowed down in a hail of gunfire like Jack Welker and his men. So if Kim does die, maybe I don't see her getting shot. Just based on that one piece of dialogue that Vince Gilligan said in the aftermath of the finale of Breaking Bad. But again, I could be totally wrong. Who knows? That is a good point, Danny. I thought about that as well, though. Again, I definitely thought about, the contradiction to that theory as well, about how I talked about this as well, about how he only knows Werner. I guess his wife as well, he would know. I mean, I don't know what she would know about the project, if anything. And that piece, and people have also said that he's going to go after Kai, maybe. That part I don't really necessarily agree with, because if you go back to that conversation that Lalo had with Werner in season 4 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Winner, when Werner said to Lalo, Kai knows what to do, he was cut off on the phone by Mike Ehrmantraut, and Lalo said to him, I didn't get that last part, so I don't even know if he heard that per se. But again, that's definitely the sort of the other side of the argument why the Germany thing kind of doesn't make sense. You know, I could be, again, like I said, I could be completely wrong, but that's a really good point. Like the points you raise are definitely the sort of the contradiction to that theory for sure. I agree, Benedict Jones. I absolutely agree. Again, I don't know if I see uh, Kim using Ed to disappear. I guess it's possible, but Saul has that contact, and I talked about it in a previous video, and we don't know how he got it for sure. But again, I guess we're gonna probably figure out how he got that contact, and it doesn't even require him ever meeting Ed to disappear, because he said he didn't even know his name. So I imagine we will absolutely see the backstory behind that contact. But Kim using it, again, I tend to agree. Beef testosterone. I don't really see it as of this moment, but who knows? Crazier things have already happened in this storyline, or in this series through the first 4 episodes. I agree. Chef Big Hat, which I thought said Chief Big Hat initially, but it says Chef. That's a good point, Ryan Buckley. I hadn't considered that. Maybe Peter Schuler. I guess it's possible. But again, we know, I mean, whatever he tries to do, it's not going to work, seemingly, because Gus Fring stays in the good graces of the cartel for the years to come in the plot of Breaking Bad. So, again, maybe Peter Schuler. I actually hadn't considered that. It's a great point if he's in Germany. But again, I really don't know. That is a good point. Relax and sleep. I definitely a couple heavy smokers in the in this universe with Skylar as well as Kim. So again, not the best habit for sure, but definitely a I don't know. It's definitely a real thing though. People definitely do it. So I guess maybe a stress coping mechanism. We definitely don't know the backstory of that, but it is kind of an interesting point you raise. I think you were in response to a comment. And just score. I don't think so. That doesn't make sense. I don't think that wouldn't make sense at all. I don't think Walt and Jimmy meeting, because after they left Ed's basement, I mean, yeah, Walt stayed in New Hampshire, and he definitely would. He went back to. I guess theoretically he could have stopped in Nebraska on his way there, talk about a plot twist we didn't see coming there. I guess it's possible, but I don't know if I see that for sure. Walt and Jimmy meeting in the post Breaking Bad timeline. I guess it's not technically impossible, come to think of it, but I don't know if it factors into the storyline. So yeah, beef testosterone. Speaking of Jack Walker, I do wonder if we'll see Jesse Plemons. That's another character I definitely hope we see again. Maybe we won't. Again, as I'm watching this series unfold this season, I'm definitely reminded of myself that the premise of the show is not to show every little detail that was ever described to us in the plot of Breaking Bad. But I feel like Vominos Pest was pretty prominent, and Saul did say that he was pulling their chestnuts out of the fire, legally speaking, for 5 years. So I would hope that Vominos Pest appears, at least with Ira. Again, we don't know how long Todd was working there, so just because we see Vominos Pest, it doesn't mean that he was working there the entire time. So That's funny, JP. So I definitely remember Vince Gilligan kind of joking on one podcast of the Insider podcast about like it might have even been season one about like kind of jokingly saying, "Oh, he hopes to make smoking cool again." He clearly was joking because it's definitely not good for you. But you know, yeah, definitely. I guess yeah, people smoke. I guess it's definitely a thing. So I don't know. Maybe it comes across as maybe it's romanticized when it's like displayed in television like this. I'm not really sure. So yeah, JW. I do wonder who he's having dinner with for sure. That's actually a good point you raised. If I can try to find that scene, if it comes up here. No, I think it was in the other teaser when he's having dinner with someone. If I can find it, yeah, here, this one. Yeah, you do wonder. I didn't really discuss that one too much, but you do wonder. He's definitely appearing to have dinner with someone or talking with someone. Using that absolute in hindsight, kind of sociopathic charm where he's just unbelievably charismatic and charming and extremely personable and very, he comes across as very trustworthy. That's the sort of his skill that he has. Someone like Tuco or the cousins don't have that ability. They're just absolutely just ruthless in respect to just being ruthless killers, and they don't really have the sort of softer side to them, and they're not subtle at all. But that's what just was so unexpected when we first met Lalo Salamanca in the plot of Better Call Saul, was when we see him in the kitchen at the El Michoacan restaurant cooking. I mean, the first thing we see of him is this grinning from ear to ear, just being so personable and charming with Nacho, just completely the opposite of characters like Tuco and the cousins, who were just unbelievably, just outwardly intimidating in their own unique ways, respectively. So yeah, with Werner's wife, I mean, I guess it's possible. Again, I'm not even gonna. I don't even know if I can comment on that one. But I guess Marguerite. Who knows? Again, the Germany theory could be completely wrong at the end of the day. So Sam Loomis as well. Yep, Sam Loomis. I agree completely. I've talked about that as well. He's definitely, even though he's not on screen, his presence is absolutely felt, and he is definitely in the heads of every one of the characters who knows that he's still alive, with Jimmy at this point, aka Saul, being the only one who's able to be ignorantly blissful of his absence and really believing that he's dead. I almost think, if I'm not mistaken, in the television teaser for the next episode of season 6, episode 5, I think Jimmy said to Kim that thank God he's dead, something to that effect. So maybe Kim reveals it to him in the next episode. Again, she didn't tell him at the end of the last episode, maybe waiting for the right time. Not really sure, but yeah, his presence is absolutely felt. Wow, JW, I didn't even consider that. A lot of people, again, maybe he's just in Albuquerque. Who knows? I mean, he did drive in the opposite direction of the border, but who knows? Maybe he's meeting with, you know, maybe he is sitting down with Kim here. Who knows? Maybe he is in Albuquerque here, and he sort of, swooped in, and I don't know. We're really sort of we're really speculating here, but maybe it's just something we don't see coming at all. Maybe he is in Albuquerque. I don't know if he's talking to Kim here in this scene, but maybe he's not overseas. Again, I kind of talked about how would he even get there in the first place. That would require a plane or a boat ride. So I appreciate it, Andrew Squire. Thank you. You are too kind with your words, but I do appreciate it. Interesting theory there, JRM8899, about him losing interest in conning Howard again. At the same time, though, I think that Kim is still a very big part of in his life, and going after Howard and getting that $1.7 million so that Kim can set up her pro bono practice. Excuse me. Um, I don't know. It's definitely possible, but I don't. I think that he's still in the game. He's still gonna. I think he's still all in on the con. Maybe he's at Taco Cabeza Smack Kerr. That's hilarious. That's a hell of a restaurant. That's Taco Cabeza. No, I don't think Gus actually has kids. Benedict Jones. I think I talked about that more in my last live stream about how. Yeah, I talked about that more in my last live stream, but I don't think he has kids. Yes, relax and sleep. Actually, interesting point. I have heard people some people speculate that maybe the cartel would go after Price for selling Nacho the drugs, which he used to incapacitate Hector. Again, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. Again, I think the cartel has bigger fish to fry, and I think that's a little bit too much. Like that would require way too much just on scene investigation and then execution. I guess it is possible, but I don't know. Part of me definitely is holding out hope that Danny, that who runs the laser tag, is Price, and therefore he wouldn't die before the plot of Breaking Bad when, when Saul mentions that dialogue and to Walter White in respect to the money laundering component of Walter White's drug empire. So, and yeah, and actually, just going back really quickly to that's the infamous scene of Saul Goodman's dialogue in the desert. When you hear him say "No Lalo," and if you read the captions, it says "No Lalo" on the captions, but it definitely sounds like he's saying "Do Lalo" or something to that effect. Like it definitely doesn't sound like "no," but the captions say "no." And again, I don't know what the story is behind there. Of course, it was at the time it was just absolute throwaway dialogue. Maybe the scripts did say "No Lalo," but Saul was kind of flustered there. We can sort of editorialize, and he was sort of mumbling or mispronounced the word "no," something to that effect. But no, I heard a lot of people say it was supposed to be Don Lalo or something to that effect. It definitely sounds like Do Lalo, but the captions definitely say No Lalo. So again, I don't know if the story is there if the line was supposed to be No Lalo, but in reality the I don't know, the editors or whoever puts it together like that take the best, and they use that one despite the fact that it sounded like "do" instead of "no." I don't know, so I don't know how that factors in or anything like that. Yeah, so I guess it could be Don Lalo. He has been referred to as Don Lalo by the family he used as to basically be his body doubles when he faked his own death. They did refer to him, but he was Don Eduardo there, not Don Lalo. So I definitely think it's supposed to be No Lalo. I think it was just it didn't sound like it, but it was definitely No Lalo. So Saul Goodman, relax and sleep. So Smack Kerr, yeah, exactly. Hey, who among us has not stumbled on their words and pronounced things incorrectly? I mean, this channel is no exception to that. So I will definitely give Saul a break there. He had just been kidnapped. He's not going to be a perfect, and he's not going to enunciate with the Queen's English when he thinks he's about to die after the cartel kidnaps him for some unknown thing to the audience at this point in time. So yeah, Raul Sanchez. It definitely. I don't know if it sounds like Don Lalo, but it sounds like Do Lalo. If you go back and watch that, but the captions say No Lalo. In the same way that if you go back to that scene in 38 Snub, when Walter White gets that phone call when he's trying to kill Gus Fring outside of his home, the person who says "Go home, Walter," it definitely does not sound like Mike Ehrmantraut. It definitely sounds more like Tyrus. But the captions say Mike, "Go home, Walter." Like Mike says "Go home, Walter." So again, I don't know. I'm rolling with No Lalo. Ryan Buckley, I don't hate that theory at all. I do not hate that theory at all. Definitely possible. We know that he got Emilio off twice. The second time implied to be in the pilot episode of Breaking Bad. So I almost forgot that he has to interact with Emilio. So who knows? Who knows if we see Jesse and Emilio at Taco Cabeza? It's definitely possible. Again, it comes across as a little bit almost cheesy in my opinion, but it definitely won't be on screen. It's gonna be friggin' awesome if we see a storyline to that effect. So I almost forgot that we have to see the Emilio backstory, and I definitely, based on everything that I've seen so far, I definitely think we're gonna see it for sure. Yeah, relax and sleep. That was I believe the who mentioned that in my last live chat. I think the commenter Cinco Bones or Synchro Bones, excuse me if I messed up that name, but about her being in Jimmy's life when he saw Goodman again. it's not technically impossible. And again, I did talk about how it would be kind of, devastating in its own right if Kim was in the fold of the operation and was that silent partner, but they were no longer together as like in a relationship. They were kind of doing their own thing, but we're still working together. I don't know. It comes across a little bit as like Elaine and Jerry and Seinfeld. Maybe it's a little bit too cheesy or something to that effect, but I don't know. It's definitely possible. So again, she couldn't be in his life, but again, their relationship as it is not going to stand the test of time for sure. Because I don't know, I mean, they're currently not in an open relationship, and best case scenario, Saul is doing all those things where it's clearly implied that he was having sex with prostitutes in his office. So if he was in a relationship with Kim, I mean, he would really come across as not the quite redeemable character for sure. In that respect, if Kim was still in his life. So definitely an interesting point, and definitely an aspect of the storyline I can't wait to see unfold over the course of these next 9 episodes. Yeah, Jay, for sure. And again, the reason why he was doing all those things initially, excuse me, was because he was just the comic relief nature of the plot of the show of Breaking Bad. He was the comic relief to cut through the dark nature of Walt and Jesse's plot. And it's actually quite, you'd never expect this sort of very nuanced, intricate backstory where he wasn't like that at all in his younger years prior to him becoming Saul Goodman to be displayed to us. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how they took that initial just comic relief dialogue and just totally crafted this unexpected storyline, following that. So I did see that beef testosterone. I made a video about that as well. Again, it looked like the office had been completely set up. Again, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but in the next episode when we see Francesca and Saul in that office, it's definitely not set up yet. Maybe I'll talk about that more tomorrow. But yeah, I definitely did see that, that scene of her outside. Hard to read too much into that. I mean, we've already seen her outside of the office here. It hasn't been completely set up, but it definitely looked more sort of down the line in the storyline. With the office, I think the office was all done up. It was actually like completed to where it was in the plot of Breaking Bad in that leaked behind the scenes fan footage. So yeah, Stephen Brunel. It definitely sounded like Tyrus going back to that phone call, but it said Mike in the captions. So if that's what you're referring to. Ooh, all right. Well, again, I hope that was somewhat productive. Yeah, definitely. That quote's coming in the next episode for sure, Thomas. But again, I hope that was somewhat productive. Again, I feel like it might have not been that productive with us. Basically, at the end of the day, we have absolutely no idea where Lalo Salamanca is going to be. So for anyone who tuned in who was hoping for an answer, I apologize. I guess you could have done something more productive with your evening than have me speculate. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I'm probably going to call it there. Again, I really feel like, again, when I say in my videos we could speculate all day, I literally mean it. And we could literally go on forever and ever. But at the end of the day, we have no idea. But like I said, I cannot wait to see what's happening in this scene. Like, Lalo's been absent in the last 3 episodes, and I definitely am really looking forward to seeing him appear whenever that is. And it's definitely possible he doesn't appear in the next episode for sure. So don't know what storyline they're trying to craft here, but I can't wait to find out. Yep, Benedict, I will stream after that episode for sure. And like I said, really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. Really loved speculating with everyone. Really loved hearing everyone else's theories. I definitely learned a lot from what everyone said. Can't wait to see what happens on Monday. And I really hope that everyone has a great weekend and a great evening. So thank you again so much for tuning in. I really appreciate everyone for commenting and for liking the video and all of that. And yeah, I miss Nacho as well, Thomas. I do as well. Definitely didn't expect to see him go so soon. But anyway, take care, man. Take care, everyone, and have a great evening. I'll see you guys around.